الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. This is the Tafsir show, and inshallah today we will be covering from where we left off in Surah Al-Furqan from the 18th juz, continuing on to the 19th juz, where we will cover inshallah Surah Al-Shu'ara and Surah Al-Naml very briefly, because Surah Al-Naml also continues on into the 20th juz. Before we come to Surah Al-Furqan, Surah Furqan literally means the decider. Furqan is that thing which decides between two things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Surah Furqan to decide between haqq and batil, to decide between truth and falsehood. And also, it carries on from the previous surah. It carries on from the previous surah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about, in Surah An-Nur, about haqq and batil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about light and darkness. Surah Nur literally means the celestial light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in that surah about Himself being the light of the heavens and the earth. And then Allah mentions the darkness of the disbelievers. So Furqan is that decider. And what is that Furqan? Furqan is the Qur'an that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down. The very first ayah, Allah azza wa jal says, تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي نَزَّلَ الْفُرْقَانَ عَلَىٰ عَبْدِهِ لِيَكُونَ لِلْعَالَمِينَ نَذِيرًا. That high, blessed and high, lofty is that being who has sent down the Furqan, the decider, عَلَىٰ عَبْدِهِ, upon his servant, لِيَكُونَ لِلْعَالَمِينَ نَذِيرًا, so that he may be a guide, so that he may be a warner for all of the worlds. And here the worlds means the world of man and the world of jinn. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down this Furqan. And in the previous surah, for lack of time yesterday we could not cover it, but Allah mentions about the difference between haqq and batil by mentioning how Allah azza wa jal is the nur of as-samawati wal-ard. Allahu nuru as-samawati wal-ard. Mathalu nurihi kamishkatin fiha misbah. A beautiful ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that He is the permeating light that transcends throughout the entire heavens and the earth. We believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is immanent. We believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is active in the affairs of every single person. That مَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا, that everything that happens, every leaf that falls, every ant that walks around, every human being that is born, and every soul that is taken, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responsible for it. It is not that Allah created the world and left it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is immanent, meaning Allah azza wa jal is active in the affairs of humanity, in the affairs of this world. So Allah's light penetrates, Allah's light permeates every single part of the heavens and the earth. And that is the light of Allah azza wa jal. Light touches, and light opens up, and light guides. And that is what Allah's light is. Allah's light is hidayah. Allah's light is nur. Allah's light is guidance. Allah's light is that what takes you from darkness towards light. And that is what Allah nuru samawati wal ard is. And that ayah Allah azza wa jal mentions about His light. Then He, in the very next few ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions first about في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال. Then Allah mentions رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about men. When we talk about, especially in today's time, we talk about masculinity. We have so many people out there trying to give this version of masculinity. So many people, social media influencers, talking about rujula, about a person being a man. What does Allah azza wa jal regard as being a man? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regard as masculinity within a person? رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة. That a person's trade, a person's business, a person's place of work does not distract them عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة, from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from the establishment of salah and the giving of zakah. يخافون يوما تتقلب فيه القلوب والأبصار. These men are such that they fear, that within that masculinity they have space for fear. Fear of what though? Fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fear of that day, of akhirah, of that day when hearts will be trembling. يخافون يوما تتقلب فيه القلوب والأبصار. That on that day hearts will be trembling, and the gaze of a person, the eyes of a person will be wandering here and there, looking for some kind of respite, looking for somewhere where they can get help and aid and assistance from. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regards as men. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking within every single person. Do you have that within you? Do you have that kind of, that feeling within you? Do you have that part of you that is pushing towards a spiritual aspect? Are you distracted by those things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put there only as a fitna, only as something to take you from one place to the other, to give you some kind of provision in this temporary abode? And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this dunya for. Then Allah azza wa jal talks about, so He's talked about the mu'mineen, and then He's talked about light, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about darkness. Then Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَعْمَالُهُمْ كَسَرَابٍ بِقِيعَةٍ يَحْسَبُهُ الظَّمْآنُ مَاءً. The good actions of the people who disbelieve, the people who reject the message, it is like a mirage in the desert. يَحْسَبُهُ الظَّمْآنُ مَاءً. That person who is incredibly thirsty, he thinks that there is water. When he gets there, he comes to that place where he thought there was water, he thought there was an oasis. He comes there and he finds absolutely nothing there. And that is the example of the good deeds of the disbelievers, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that these people who reject the message, on the day of Qiyamah, they will come there. They will be resurrected. They will come and they will think that they have something. They will assume that in my life I committed good actions and I thought I've put something forward that I can present on the day of Qiyamah. Allah says it is like a mirage. On the day of Qiyamah, if a person comes there, there will be nothing there. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to say is, good actions are great, but whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Amilu salihat, wherever Allah azza wa jal talks about performing good actions, Allah always puts the condition before it of Iman. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. The person who brings belief, the person who takes up belief and then he performs good actions. And the activator, so to speak, of good actions is that a person has belief in their heart. Many a times we see around us, and it is unfortunate, it is a case that it is also our responsibility that we try to call other people towards Islam, that there are so many people around us who are performing or doing what we consider to be good actions. They are engaging themselves, they are pushing themselves within different fields, charities, whether it may be pieces of activism, whatever they may be doing. And we find so many people doing these kind of things, but if they do not have Iman, our belief is on the day of Qiyamah, all of their a'mal, all of that will be to absolutely naught. There will be no benefit in that whatsoever. And this is where Iman comes into play. This is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَعْمَالُهُمْ, that their a'mal on the day of Qiyamah will come to absolutely nothing. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions أَوْ كَظُلُمَاتٍ فِي بَحْرٍ نُجِّيٍّ يَخْشَاهُ مَوْجٌ مِّن فَوْقِهِ سَحَابٍ. That it is like the dhulumat, it is like varying stages of darkness. And where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on one hand He mentioned about nur and about light, Allah mentions about dhalala, Allah mentions about being lost, being away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The further away that a person is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more in darkness that a person is. Allah says كَظُلُمَاتٍ فِي بَحْرٍ نُجِّيٍّ يَغْشَاهُ مَوْجٌ. It's like the varying stages of darkness in the sea. And this is again one of the miracles of the Qur'an. If a person was to go into the oceans, what they will find is that at the surface layer, light penetrates. It comes through. So if you go and dive in the water and you're wearing your scuba headgear and you go in, you will find that light penetrates the first part. But as you go deeper and deeper, there are actually levels where light stops penetrating. So one level of light will not penetrate anymore. So one spectrum of light. And then as you go deeper a bit more, another spectrum. And then you will come eventually to such depths that there is absolutely no light. So from the top, from where the light comes down from the sun and hits the surface of the sea, the first level there's a bit, second level a little less, third level a little less, fourth level a little less. This is something that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam could not have known. And this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about. But Allah uses that example to point out about how the further a person is away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the decreasing levels, the decreasing amount of light that a person receives. And that is the example of the disbelievers that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Qur'an. Then Allah goes on to Surah Al-Furqan, and this is the decider. Allah says that the Qur'an is the decider. It has been presented to absolutely every single person. And then that person either makes a choice. Does he want to take the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or does he want to go into these depths? Does he want to go and push himself? Does he want to sink into these depths, following his own desires, following shayateen, and not accepting the message? Allah begins with تبارك الذي نزل الفرقان على عبده ليكون للعالمين نذيرا. There are 8 places in the Qur'an where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says تبارك الذي. 5 are in 5 different surahs. 5 are in 5 different surahs. 3 are in this surah itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the first one here, تبارك الذي نزل الفرقان. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تبارك الذي إن شاء جعل لك خيرا من ذلك جنات. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about تبارك الذي جعل في السماء بروجا وجعل فيها سراجا وقمرا منيرا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, extremely blessed, high, lofty is that being, is that deity who created constellations of stars and who created a brightly shining sun and a luminous moon. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning, Allah Azza wa Jal is mentioning His own majesty. How high is Allah? How great is Allah? How incredible is Allah Azza wa Jal? He can create jannatin, that He can create gardens of varying different fruits and vegetables and plants and all sorts of different things. A person puts a seed in, one seed from a different seed looks absolutely the same. But what comes out of there is a world of difference. And from that one seed comes out shade from the tree itself. From that one seed comes out thousands, if not hundreds of, hundreds, if not thousands of different fruits. If it be a date tree, there could be hundreds of thousands. If it is an apple tree, thousands. And every single year, again and again, something coming out, something from as small as a little seed. Allah Azza wa Jal is mentioning His power here. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the surah by mentioning the greatest favor that He has given, which is the Qur'an. The greatest favor, which is the Furqan, the thing that differentiates between haqq and batil. And in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions various different things, but towards the end, which is a place that we can reflect upon, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions about Ibadur Rahman, the servants of the Most Merciful. Allah uses Ar-Rahman here because, again, this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes for Himself to be called by. Allah wants that we refer to Allah, that we think of Allah as Ar-Rahman. That when we think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't think of Allah as Aziz, we don't think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Muntaqim. We think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Ar-Rahman. Those are all qualities of Allah, definitely. Those are all different qualities. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has so many different names, so many different attributes. And those attributes will be in accordance to different places, different times. But when we think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, the most compassionate. The one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah is such that it is completely encompassing of everything and everyone. That is what we think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here refers to Ibadur Rahman, the servants of Ar-Rahman. So our relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of abdiyah, because Allah Azza wa Jalla is referring to us as ibad, is one of abdiyah, complete, total submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subservience. But when we think of Allah, we think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the most merciful. Usually, the servant thinks of the master as someone who is cruel. The servant thinks of the master as someone who is powerful, someone who can punish him. But here Allah says that is not the link between you and I. That is not the link between the creation and the creator. The link between the creation and the creator is one of mercy, is one of love. One where the servant wishes, is desirous of, is constantly looking to connect with his creator. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about here. And then Allah mentions several qualities. وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. The first quality Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions is that when they walk on the earth, they have humility. Again, abdiyah. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to us as servants. We have humility in every aspect of our life. Kibr is something that is only relevant, that is only suitable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. When they walk across the face of the earth, they walk in a way that they have humility. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. And when the ignorant come and speak to them, they say salam. They say peace be upon you. This is a poignant ayah. This is something which is incredibly relevant in today's time. In today's time, we have a culture, we have a place where anyone and everyone can talk to us. At any given moment in time, I can be speaking to someone on the other side of the world. The amount of interactions that I can have right now is there's an infinite amount of interactions. There's so many people that a person can speak to. And undoubtedly what's going to happen is you're going to come across those people who are ignorant. You're going to come across those people who are trolls. You're going to come across those people who want to insult you, whose only objective on the internet, whose only objective really is to just try to annoy people, just to try to say things to people, try to rile them up, get them angry. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the antidote here. Allah says, وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. That when such people come and speak to them, they just say, peace be upon you. And as Muslims especially, this is the case, that we're going to have people that will come to try to rile us up. They will come and say things about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They will come and say things about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what do we find? When someone says something about Allah, Allah says, وَلَا تَسُبُّ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّ اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. That if they say something about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or rather we should not even go out of our way to say anything about someone else's gods, about someone else's belief. Why? One is obviously maintaining that we believe in something and we want to establish the truth. But we do not say something insulting because then they might say something insulting back. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّا كَفَيْنَاكَ الْمُسْتَهْزِئِينَ. That we will suffice for you on the part, we will suffice for you against these people who mock you, against these people who taunt you. Whenever it comes to this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالُوا سَلَامًا. Say peace be upon you and leave them. If you can try to explain to them, try. But if that's not going to work, if it's not going to go through, then absolutely leave them, say assalamu alaikum and go on your way. And online, our etiquette online should be this, that sometimes online these kind of things happen, these kind of interactions happen. Our attitude should not be that we become embroiled in these kind of debates and discussions and try to, just fighting, just constantly quarreling with other people. Rather, our attitude should be, as Allah Azza wa Jal says, if a person doesn't seem like they're going to accept, you're better off just saying assalamu alaikum, leaving them, rather than pushing them further into their belief, pushing them further, making them even more dogmatic about what they are saying. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala carries on and Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ يَبِيتُونَ لِرَبِّهِمْ سُجَّدًا وَقِيَامًا. They spend their nights in standing and in sujood. And Allah mentions sajda first and then qiyam later. Because sajda is the apex of worship. Sajda is the highest level of worship. Every single part of salah leads on to sajda. Every single part of salah, from qiyam to ruku, leads on to sajda. And it is the most important part of sajda. And in sajda, a person is putting their head on the ground, their forehead on the ground. They're almost rubbing their face. They're rubbing their face on the ground out of, again, to show that humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to show that submission to Allah Azza wa Jal. The person is putting their face in the lowest part and the part of the body which a person considers to be the most noble, the most blessed to themselves, or the highest thing to themselves. A person is putting that on the ground in sajda. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers sajda to be such a great part of worship and such a great act of worship. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions here, وَالَّذِينَ يَبِيتُونَ لِرَبِّهِمْ سُجَّدًا وَقِيَامًا. And then Allah mentions, وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا اصْرِفْ عَنَّا عَذَابَ جَهَنَّمَ إِنَّ عَذَابَهَا كَانَ غَرَامًا إِنَّهَا سَاءَتْ مُسْتَقَرًّا وَمُقَامًا. That they constantly making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that, oh Allah, remove, oh Allah, take away, رَبَّنَا اصْرِفْ عَنَّا عَذَابَ جَهَنَّمَ, take away that adhab of Jahannam away from us. Make sure it never touches us. This is a constant dua that we should make. And then Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا. That when they spend, they are neither wasteful, they are neither extravagant in their spending, وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا, but they are not miserly at the same time, وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا, but they are moderate, they are something in between the two. And this should be our habit in spending. We should not be miserly. Money is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a bounty, it is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is something which should be used. Money is not there to be hoarded. Money and wealth is not there to be kept. Because if a person keeps their wealth just like that, zakah will eat away at it, inflation will eat away at it, it will go. So a person is expected to use their wealth. Either use it for your own personal gain, for something, or invest it. And that is what wealth Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given wealth for. That you either invest it or you use it on yourself. And if you keep it, ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to pass away and it'll go to your inheritors. So use that wealth. Use it in something that will help you in the akhirah. Use it in something that will help you in this dunya. Use it in something that you can then use that money that you get more to help other people. Use it. But at the same time, do not be lam yusrifu. Do not be extravagant in your usage of money. And extravagant here is in so many different meanings. One is extravagance in dunya, and that is the obvious meaning, that a person should not be extravagant in dunya. A person should not be spending money that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him on things that are wasteful. It is a blessing, and on the day of Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask every single person, that mal, that wealth I gave you, what did you do with it? And unfortunately in today's time, it's very easy to spend money. The apps that we have, online retail that we have, it is very easy, just a click of a button and the money is gone. We have to be very careful about about our spending habits and about how we spend. Being particular about these kind of things, because like I mentioned, it's very easy. It's very easy to spend that kind of money. Back in the days, you used to have to go to a shop, you used to have to take physical cash out, and it used to hurt you a little that is leaving your hands. But in today's time, it just goes from your bank account. You don't even realize. You only see afterwards. So again, being wasteful, spending money in that kind of way, we have to be cognizant of the fact that on the day of Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us about every single penny that we spend. That money that is spent in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that money which is spent in charity, that is the best kind of spending. And that is the thing that we should be really spending on. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about these same people, Ibadur Rahman, they do not associate any partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا يَزْنُونَ They do not commit any kind of zina. They do not, their eyes, their tongue, their hands, their feet, every part of their body commits absolutely no zina. وَلَا يَزْنُونَ وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ يَلْقَ أَثَامًا And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about those people, إِلَّا مَنْ تَابَ وَآمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا Those people who believe, and again, they commit to good actions. فَأُولَٰئِكَ يُبَدِّلُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ حَسَنَاتٍ This is specifically for the people who have rejected the truth, the people who have disbelieved. Allah says that if you accept now, and this is again for eternity, that a person who has not got belief, if they come into the fold of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's mercy is such. Allah says that He will turn, فَأُولَٰئِكَ يُبَدِّلُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ حَسَنَاتٍ Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn their bad deeds into good deeds. Such is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَأُولَٰئِكَ يُبَدِّلُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ حَسَنَاتٍ And that is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is saying that He will turn their bad deeds into good deeds. How merciful is Allah? And how many bad deeds can a person have accumulated? One is shirk itself, and then all of the other things that a person might have committed throughout the entire life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that I will turn your bad deeds into good deeds. And then this is a small thing in between the description of Ibadur Rahman. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَشْهَدُونَ الزُّورِ They do not lie. وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ مَرُّوا كِرَامًا And if they pass by idle talk, if they pass by those things that people are speaking about which is wrong, which is slanderous, which is backbiting, or just general speech which gives no benefit in the dunya or in the akhirah, maru kirama, they pass by in a noble manner. We don't want to partake in this. They walk by. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that they are constantly making dua. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us from our children and our spouses قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ the coolness of our eyes, that whenever we look at them we are happy because they are following your deen, they are following the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are obedient also to the rest of the family, to myself and to the rest of the family. وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا And make us the leaders of the muttaqeen, make us those people who are ahead of every single other person, those people who lead the way, who break the glass ceiling, so to speak, in committing good actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions all of these different attributes, and may Allah azza wa jal make us from the Ibadur Rahman. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Surah Al-Shu'ara. It is a Makki surah, it means the poets. And it refers to an ayah within Surah Al-Shu'ara, which is that وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ The deviant people follow the shu'ara, the poets. And the poets at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were the media were the propaganda arm of the Quraysh. After Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this was a surah. Surah Al-Shu'ara is a surah which comes in the middle of the Makki period. After Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been told to come and warn all of his people, so he comes out and he spreads the message openly. For 3 years, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was spreading the message amongst family and friends, and then he comes out and in front of everyone he proclaims the message of Islam. And so the Quraysh immediately they get into gear. They get all of their poets to start writing things about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They taunt him for different reasons. They taunt him because he doesn't have a son. They taunt him for his position in society. They taunt him for everything and anything. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals this surah. وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. The deviant people, they follow these shu'ara. This is the media arm. And again, in today's time, you find that the media constantly, every single Muslim will know about this, that the media is constantly against us. And that has been the case at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that will be the case for all of time. بدأ الإسلام غريبا وسيعود كما بدأ غريبا فطوبى للغرباء. Islam began as something strange, it will end as something strange. فطوبى للغرباء. So glad tidings be to those strangers. Our keeping to the faith, our keeping to the principles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the principles of Sharia, is glad tidings for us. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is prophesying, he is saying that you will be strangers. You will be strangers. It will be difficult for you to express your faith. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying here, that glad tidings be to those people. In another hadith, he mentions that towards the end of time, keeping the faith will be like holding onto a hot coal. That's how difficult it will be. Such will be the turnover from Islam, from Iman to Kufr. Such will be the people turning over from belief to disbelief. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that person it'll be like holding onto a coal. But glad tidings be for that person. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Surah Al-Shu'ara. In this surah, Allah mentions various different stories of different anbiya. But what is interesting here is, since Surah Al-Baqarah, this is the one surah that has the greatest amount of ayat. The greatest amount of ayat since Surah Al-Baqarah. Yet still it is an incredibly short surah. It only takes up, it has very few rukus. It only takes up almost half a juz. The Surah Al-Shu'ara only takes up about half a juz. Yet it has almost the amount of ayat as Surah Al-Baqarah. And it has the most since Surah Al-Baqarah. And in there is a mu'jiza. In there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this is about the shu'ara, this is about the poets. And these poets who think that they can speak well, that they are very eloquent, that they are very talented. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, look, I've given you a surah. This surah is incredibly long, incredibly vast in its meaning. Almost as vast as Surah Al-Baqarah. Look, I could have expanded and I could have made it concise. I've made it concise here. Surah Al-Baqarah I opened up. Surah Al-Shu'ara I've closed up. I've made it concise. The amount of ayat is the same. The amount of depth of meaning is just the amount of ayat is similar, and the depth of meaning is also similar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying this is a mu'jiza. Can you bring something like it? And mu'jiza literally means, a mu'jiza is a miracle. Mu'jiza literally means to make something ajiz, to make something incapable of producing something. And a mu'jiza, a miracle, is something that makes someone else incapable. And the Qur'an is such that it has made the shu'ara incapable of producing anything like it. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala almost flexing the linguistic aspect of the Qur'an. That's something which is so much meaning condensed into so little, specifically aimed at these shu'ara, these poets who had come and composed things against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah ends this surah, وَإِنَّهُ لَتَنْزِيلُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ. That this is a revelation. وَإِنَّهُ لَتَنْزِيلُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. This is the revelation of the Lord of the worlds. نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ. Jibreel alayhi salam has come down with this revelation عَلَى قَلْبِكَ لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ, upon the heart of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that he may be amongst the warners. And this was a warning from him to all of the people of Mecca. Then Allah Azza wa Jal carries on into Surah An-Naml, which the majority of the discussion we'll be having tomorrow, but just an introduction to it. It is a Makki surah. The three surahs of Surah Al-Shu'ara, Surah Al-Naml and Surah Qasas, which comes tomorrow, were all revealed together one by one. And Surah Al-Naml means the ant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes reference here to the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam and the ant. And there are different places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the names of surah to different animals. Here there's the ant. There's a different place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about the spider, and a different place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about the bee, and nahl. All of these different things, all of these different insects that Allah mentions, Allah uses the example because these insects are miraculous in their own right. The bee gives an incredible amount of benefit. The spider, the way it lives in its house, the way it does what it does, is a miracle in itself, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew about it, or that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew about it. And also there is an example in there for the Quraysh. And here Surah An-Naml, the ant itself is something inshallah we will discuss tomorrow, is miraculous in the way it organizes itself, the society of ants, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them working with each other. And there's a miracle in it itself where it talks, and Sulaiman alayhi salam hears what it's speaking about. And inshallah we will discuss that tomorrow. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.